I will be serving as the hearing officer for this public hearing on Eagle submission number HNW YFKN 4HT87. With me tonight are other Eagle staff that will be assisting with this hearing. Mary Vandelon, my district supervisor for Water Resource Division, Brittany Beavers, Pamela Willard, Justin Tinker, Matt Tomlinson, who's our events coordinator and kind of operating all the IT stuff over there. And we also have a few in attendance over our live stream, including Chukwu Ohe, who is our environmental engineer for the air quality division. So to describe how I will begin with some background information about why we are here. I will then describe the purpose of the hearing and how your comments will be used. Following that, I will outline procedures under which we will take your comments and then describe what will happen after tonight's hearing. It will then be time for you to provide comments, and we will spend the majority of the time tonight listening to those comments. I should say, before we get started with the public comment period, we are going to have a 20-minute question and answer phase. So if anybody has any questions that they would like to come up and ask, we will be available to do that. I guess at this point, we didn't really have you sign anything. If you wanted to ask a question, you want to just raise your hand, we'll call you to come up. We also have a live stream we're offering through Zoom. After we do the public comments here in person, we can go to the live stream and answer any questions that might come through from that. So anyways, after that, we will start the formal comment period. And at the end of the hearing, I will provide a short summary and closing. So why don't we get started with that question and answer phase? I'm going to take a seat. If anybody wants to come up and ask a question, more than welcome. Did anybody have a question they wanted to ask?
Just where we make comments or just questions?
Just questions for now, yeah. Matt, is there anybody on the live stream?
We have 5 people that are logged in.
Do they have any questions?
No questions at this time.
Okay. All right, well, I'll tell you what. Oh, yeah, okay.
The fill-in is proposed.
Can you go to the mic? Thank you.
Yeah, once you're up there.
Just because it's easier and clear. The proposal is to fill in 0.85 of the wetlands, and I was not, didn't have enough time to do the research to find out which wetland, because there's 3 different areas of wetland. They're all small. One's 7 point something acres, one's 2 point something acres, and one's less than an acre. Which wetland is it? Is it all or one?
Well, it's, I guess, a mix of various wetlands that are on the site. We do have a set of plans up at the front if you want to have a look at those.
I had difficulty finding the plans.
The best way I could describe it, and I don't know if James, who represents the applicant, would maybe want to correct me if I'm wrong on this, but there are a few smaller incidental wetlands that were created on the site after the previous owner had graded. Those are what they are targeting to fill. There are a number of other existing wetlands that have been present there. One of them will be filled for the construction and expansion of the road, and then some minor fill in, there's like a pond on the west side of the lot, the southwest side, where I believe they're going to be placing some riprap for the outlet that is going to be discharging the stormwater.
So what is the total area that's going to be affected by these changes? Not only the fill, but it sounds like partially filled. But what is the total area?
The total footprint of the entire lot?
Correct.
I don't have that information.
It's my understanding, just briefly reading some things, that anything over an acre that is affected in a wetland needs federal review.
That is correct, yeah.
So I'm concerned the area is listed as 0.85 being filled, but I'm very concerned that it's an acre or more and it needs federal review.
Well, you know, part of our review will be looking at that if they're proposing to go beyond that, but at this time, they're telling us they're only proposing to impact 0.85 acres.
But you will closely look at the details, like the amount of destruction that increasing that culvert from 37 feet to 72 feet, all of those things that happened. You will look at that total area and then decide if it needs federal review. Is that correct?
If we find that there's a discrepancy within what they're proposing and what their plans show, then yes, we would try to address that. If it were a case where they were actually going to be impacting, then yes, that would kick in the need for review by EPA.
Okay. And I signed up to speak later, and I had other questions in when I present, so I just thought it was off on those.
Well, during the comment period, we can't answer any questions. I guess, does anybody else have a question they wanted to ask?
Can we have questions of Padnos or not comment?
You should direct them to us, and we'll try to answer them. I think you may be able to talk with them after, but the hearing should be directed towards us. I guess no one else has questions, so if you had another one. If you wanted to.
I had another one. That site has been identified as contaminated. Has the contaminants and toxins and metals, everything been cleared from that area so that any fill won't cap those contaminants and hazardous waste?
My understanding is that the site is still being handled by our remediation redevelopment.
So it's not clear.
And that, no, there's still potential issues on the site.
So my question is, how can any fill proceed if the site is still hazardous and contaminated?
That would be a better question directed towards our representative from our remediation redevelopment unit, since they handle the
Not to you?
on the site. No, we're only looking at it from the wetland impacts.
That's a contaminated wetland.
Correct. Well, we better to direct them towards them. I can get you to contact them. That about cleanup activities that are occurring on site.
I'd appreciate that. And then one last thing. I had such a short time to prepare. I wasn't able to get to my neighbors. I only learned about this on Monday. I don't know why, but I only learned about it on Monday. So can I submit later, even though I make a statement, a letter, a summary?
Yes, yep. So I'll address that in my introduction, but the public comment period will last for another 10 days after today. So that ends August 22nd. However, even after that period, if you have further questions, you know, contact me.
I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
It's a very basic question, so I won't get to my comments, but just a basic question. Have you had the opportunity, the site plan that has been submitted by Padnos to the city of Howell has been submitted to the city of Howell? Has Eagle had a chance to review that?
We are only reviewing the application and plans that they submitted to us with their application for this.
Okay, my understanding of that does not include the actual site plan itself. What's been submitted to you?
That may be correct. I'm not.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yep. anybody else have a question? Anything online, Matt?
No questions online.
I think with that, we probably end that early and just move on to the comment period then. So let me give a little, background information. The Water Resource Division is responsible for administering a variety of programs that help protect inland lakes, streams, wetlands, floodplains, sand dunes, and Great Lakes. These programs regulate certain activities such as dredging or filling a lake, stream, or wetland, construction of a dam, construction of a marina, placing a shore protection, or construction of docks, and building in a designated critical sand dune area, wetland, or floodplain. The law governing those responsibilities is the Natural Resources and Environmental Protection Act, 1994, Public Act 451 as amended. We are here tonight because Lewis Padnos Iron and Metal Company has proposed the following. The applicant proposes to fill approximately 0.85 acres of emergent wetland to construct a car shredding facility. The proposed project will also include replacement of two 37-foot long, 48-inch diameter culverts with two 72-foot long, 48-inch diameter culverts to facilitate widening of an access road through wetland and construction of a sediment basin in upland with an Aquip Filtration System and outlets discharging to wetlands. The applicant proposed to provide compensatory wetland mitigation by purchasing wetland bank credits. The purpose of this public hearing is in order for a permit to be granted, Eagle must find that the proposed activities described in the public notice meet certain criteria set by Part 303, Wetlands Protection of Act 451. In general, we must consider the effect of the proposed project on the wetlands. When reviewing an application for a permit under the provisions of Part 303, Wetlands Protection of Act 451, Eagle is charged to make the following indications as required by Section 303.11 of Part 303. A permit for an activity listed in Section 303.04 shall not be approved unless the department determines that the issuance of a permit is in the public interest, that the permit is necessary to realize the benefits derived from the activity, and that the activity is otherwise lawful. A permit shall not be issued unless it is shown that an unacceptable disruption will not result to the aquatic resources. And a permit shall not be issued unless the applicant also shows either of the following. The proposed activity is primarily dependent upon being located in a wetland, or a feasible and prudent alternative does not exist. The purpose of tonight's hearing is to give anyone interested in the proposed project an opportunity to provide information that Eagle can use in making the decision whether or not to issue a permit. Please recognize that Eagle can only use the information you provide if it relates to the criteria that Eagle must use in making a decision. Some of you may simply want to express your support or opposition of the project. We will be happy to make note of your position, but please understand that Eagle is by law not allowed to base our decision on whether or not there is widespread support or opposition to the project. In just a moment, I will outline the procedures we will use for taking comments, but before I do so, I need to mention that the notice of this hearing was published in the Livingston Daily Press in August on August 5th, 2021. As you came in this evening, you were given an opportunity to fill out a public comment card. We request that everyone fill out a card and indicate if you wish to make a comment during the hearing. We will use these cards to maintain a record of people interested in the proposed project and to call upon those who would like to speak tonight. To ensure that the hearing is conducted in a fair manner, we will follow these steps. First, the applicant or their consultant will have an opportunity to describe the proposed project. I will then call on those who have indicated on their public comment cards that they would like to speak in the general order in which the cards were turned in. And when all cards have been completed, I will ask if anyone else would like to make a statement. When your name is called, please come to the microphone, face me, and make your statement. If you have any written comments or materials that you would like to present, please hand them to me as you come to the microphone. And as you begin your comments, please state your name and any group or association you may represent. Once we've taken public comments from the members here in the audience, we will turn to our online portion and take some comments from them. Each person will be given 3 to 5 minutes to make their comments. Let's just make that 3 minutes. I will indicate to you when you have 1 minute left. Please begin wrapping up your comments and end within the allotted time. If need be, I will indicate when your time has ended. I ask that we all be courteous and respectful to one another tonight. Only one person should be speaking at a time. And please do not interrupt the speaker. And please also recognize that Eagle staff is here tonight to provide a fair opportunity for you to express your comments on the proposed project and to listen to those comments. This hearing is being recorded, and your comments will be part of the information Eagle will consider in making its decision on whether or not to issue a permit on the proposed project. The public comment period for this public hearing is open for 10 days, starting today and ending on August 22nd, 2021. Additional information and comments submitted in writing during the 10-day public comment period will also be considered in Eagle's decision. Additional information and comments may be submitted to me, either by email, or you can mail them to our office at the Lansing District Office, 525 West Allegan Street, Lansing, Michigan, 48933. I can provide that contact information at the end of this meeting. Following the close of the public comment period, Eagle will make a decision to either issue a permit for the project as proposed, or with modifications, or send a letter of denial. You may find out what the decision is by checking the Eagle My Waters website. I can provide the URL for our website after this meeting. Once you go to that website, you can search for the permit number, which is HNW-YFKN-4HT87. Thank you for your attention. I will now ask the applicant to briefly describe the proposed project, and then I will begin calling the names of those who have indicated they would like to make a statement.
So I'm James Smith, environmental consultant for the project. As Jeff described, Padnos is proposing to construct a recycling facility on an adjacent undeveloped parcel north of their existing facility here on in Howell on Lucy Road. Early on in the process, after performing wetland delineation at the site, Padnos invited Eagle to come out and verify wetland boundaries and jurisdiction at the site. A level 3 wetland identification program assessment was performed early on to provide that verification and confirmation. As Jeff noted as well, the project is proposed will have 0.85 acres of wetland impacts. The majority of those impacts are to features that appear to be incidentally created as a result of activity that took place at the site prior to Padnos taking ownership, as far from just a review, aerial review, and look at prior land use. 0.83 of the 0.85 acres are to those, like I said, small, apparently incidentally created features. The site kind of plan and orientation allows Padnos to utilize their existing entrance and facility entrance, and to avoid having to create a new one that could potentially have more wetland impacts as well. Again, the plan and orientation has been approved by the City of Howell Planning Commission, as well as Eagle Air Division, just for their issuance of air quality permits. Again, for wetland mitigation, the proposal is to purchase mitigation bank credits to offset wetland impacts at the site. The purchase of wetland bank credits is the preferred option for mitigation when wetland impacts are needed. In this instance, the mitigation credits that are purchased, those wetlands will have more functions and values as compared to the wetlands on site that will be impacted. And it'll also kind of consolidate a smaller kind of mitigation project into a larger and better managed unit moving forward. Thank you.
Thanks, James. Well, we only had a couple of people indicate they wanted to affirmatively make a comment. Why don't we go through those, and then if anybody else decides after that if they'd like to make a comment. Okay. Donald Parker. Yeah, give or take. I mean, sure. 3 to 5.
Okay. Thank you for being here. That includes the Padnos representative. Thanks to members of the public as well. I'll keep my comments strictly to wetlands, so you don't have to worry about me going off out of your portfolio, so to speak. It's important to understand, and that was the reason why I answered the question, if you had seen the site plan pending before the city, is it says pavement for the site. But if you look at it into the details, it's actually going to be a 21 AA gravel. And that provides great risk for the wetlands, because then you're talking about a permeable surface in terms of contaminants and stormwater that can seep, of course, that seeps into the ground through this 21 AA gravel, eventually ends up in the wetland. And so it's important to understand with this kind of proposal that Eagle should require, and I understand Padnos has property rights, but Eagle should require ground surface to be an impermeable pavement to protect the groundwater and the wetlands from these contaminants. That should be a no-brainer. Also, the entire site, if it goes through, allows for contaminated stormwater to infiltrate through the gravel, which I just mentioned, into the groundwater. Eagle should require the shredder to obtain a groundwater discharge permit. I think that's appropriate in this case. Eagle has the authority to do that. And because of the nature of this project, I think it's entirely appropriate and proper. It's also important to understand that water discharge from a shredder, and there'll be water pumped at the shredder, cleaning, will discharge into existing contaminated soil. We are talking about an existing contaminated site. So there is contamination that already exists in that soil beneath the site. That will eventually throw, with the pressure of this additional water that's being applied to the pressure just through standard industrial processes. That will eventually seep and flow into these wetlands. So Eagle should require that this water discharge to be controlled so that existing contaminated soil at the site does not cause more damage to the existing wetlands. Let's also understand, if you take a look at the site plan, as I said, pending before the city, that the proposed stormwater pond and treatment system are actually quite small. And there's a simple explanation for this. It's again because of the gravel and the impermeable surface. They're assuming that much of these contaminants and the stormwater will be collected and seep through the gravel. And so I think and we're talking about stormwater that can actually contact the shredder, raw materials, fluff piles, oil, all of these contaminants that may contain oil, gasoline, metals, etc. Eagle should require the treatment system to treat all stormwater generated at the site before discharge into the wetlands to protect the wetlands from these contaminants. The basins are quite small. It's very clear that the stormwater system is not that large. And the reason is because of this permeable surface. We need an impermeable paved surface at the site. And I will close my final remarks with this. If you take a look at the site plan, they have sanitary sewer lines, or they have them drawn, coming out onto Lucy Road. There is no sanitary sewer line at Lucy Road at this site. There's one far to the north, kind of just a little bit south of Industrial Drive as you kind of approach Grand River. But there's not one where they have it drawn connecting. Now there's water, but not sanitary sewer. And so I think that it's crucial that this site, that Eagle should prohibit this site from installing a septic system. And this will further, because the septic system, as we all know, as a kid, I remember going to lakes when they still had the old septics on the residence by the lake. You have seepage. And so a site like this should have some connection to a sewer and should not rely, and this is for the wetlands, should not rely on a septic system. I'll have further additional comments, but I will submit that in writing in the period that you stated. Thank you very much.
Okay, Patricia Murphy.
So my name is Patricia Murphy, and I'm a resident. I live by Thompson Lake on Lakeshore Vista in the Lakeshore Point sub. So, and I've worked in this county for many years, over 30 years, and been a resident for many years. I'm a bit familiar with the site, a bit familiar with the history of the prior business there. And the contamination and my concern was raised up. So I have something to read because I don't have that good a memory, so please bear with me. It says in part 303, section 30311(2), in parentheses, I guess, is the activity in the public interest of benefit which reasonably may be expected to accrue from this proposal for a permit. Padnos, as a company, has not proven that this activity is in the interest of benefit to the public, and I challenge them to prove it. The public has multiple times objected to this facility. And I know we're just talking about a wetlands permit, so I will try and keep it to that. Even to this wetlands permit, there is an outcry. This is our environment. This is where we live. This affects our watershed. This affects our drinking water. So despite all the protests and concerns from citizens, residents, and businesses and adjoining townships, Padnos has ignored these. So how can this be in the best interest if a company even ignores and does not prefer to address any of the concerns? The wetland to be filled has been degraded, and I challenge the assumption that this has been created by the former businesses. Looking at a little bit older map, it appears like there was a larger wetland at one time, possibly. I don't know. I don't have any old maps. I can't confirm it. But I challenge that it's been created. Either way, it's still a wetland. It's still a protected wetland, and it is contaminated. Once again, I think Eagle, even in considering this permit, which would fill in that wetland, cap the contamination, needs to consider it. I can't see going to another department. I think it's a joint decision that needs to be made of this department and the department that oversees the contamination. It just can't be separate. If you cap contamination, it's going to further leach into the soil. The location of that wetland is in our watershed area, which is crucial to the lake streams, Thompson Lake, all the lakes around. And nearby, not that far, is our protected wellhead. One of our protected wellheads is not that far from this location. Should contaminate reach our aquifer, reach our protected wellhead, our drinking water we wouldn't have any. It would be contaminated. We would be drinking bottled water like Flint. So that I would ask the committee, the EGLE, to look at the watershed area, the lakes and streams, and the protected wellhead that's in close proximity, as well as the underlying aquifer. The sedimentary basin that's proposed is questionable. Does it and can it? And I have limited knowledge of sedimentary basins, but does it and can it meet the present day requirements that this new wave of violent drenching and long-lasting storms bring? We just had one with subsequent flooding, outages, destruction, erosion. Can this basin prevent contamination onto our watershed, onto the wetland, to nearby protected wellhead, etc., into other lands, residents? Furthermore, there is no mention in the proposal that I could see of a waste storm management system, a storm management system. And I thought that was required or encouraged, one of the two, from what I read. And the last and final, I think, thing I want to say is, this is a destruction, not just a filling in, it's a destruction of a wetland. Yes, it's assumed it's constructed, how do you say that? It's assumed that it's been damaged. What was the term you used?
Degraded?
Degraded, excuse me. It's assumed and it's been labeled as degraded. And it's been assumed by old studies and old surveys that there are no endangered, threatened, or special concern plants, flora, wildlife in that area. But no recent surveys have been done. It is in the best interest of the community, of the people, that a survey be done to ensure that we aren't destroying precious wildlife and plants. That basically ends my comments for tonight. And I look forward to getting the place to send a letter. Thank you. And thank you for your time.
I've got a number of cards here that you didn't really indicate whether you wanted to make a statement or not. I guess I'll just throw it to the crowd. Does anybody at this time that maybe didn't mark anything on here or would like to make a statement? Yes, sir.
Good evening, Robert Amico. I own the property on 2140 Industrial Drive. I share the, I guess would be Padnos' northern property line. There is what I believe is the same wetland that spills over into my southeast corner of the property behind MHOG, their building there. So I'm not an engineer, but I'm concerned that if we're looking at the impact on that property, if the wetland extends onto mine, is there any type of, and I don't mean to be selfish with this, but I'm just curious, will EGLE look at the impact on neighboring properties? Water finds the lowest point, and I believe from looking at the topographicals, my property is somewhat lower than theirs. I purchased the property in 2017, and it's been a wetland since then. I remember, I don't know when you guys acquired the property, but there was a lot of dirt moving done. And it was my understanding that the wetland was still there, right? We called it Lucy Lake, honestly, because it was pretty large. So again, my concern, as a concerned neighbor, what happens if we're looking at just the water area on their property, or are you guys looking at how it impacts neighboring properties? So I'm fearful. I can't control the water. All right.
Can't really answer. Talk to me after this. We can.
All right, cool. Another one would be, I don't know if this is part of it or not, but when we improved that site, it was gravel. We were told that we needed to put asphalt down to control storm drain, right? We weren't required because of the amount of square footage to connect to the storm drains there. But, you know, at considerable expense, we had to pave the property. And I was curious, I was told that was to be able to save our roads from storm water and dirt, I guess, from being removed from my property onto industrial, onto Lucy. So I'm just curious how that your department works with understanding what happens to storm water. Yeah, so cool. I appreciate the opportunity, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks. Is there anybody else that would like to make a comment? No? All right. Matt, is there anybody online?
No, there's not.
I'll throw it to the crowd one more time. Otherwise, I mean, if no one else has a comment, I guess we could wrap things up from there. Well, I'll be around for a little bit after this, so if anybody wants to talk after to discuss some things or has additional questions, I'll be available. But otherwise, I guess at this point, if no one else wants to speak. I apologize, sorry. Okay. I just want to thank everyone for your comments and collaboration. We do appreciate your interest in the proposed project and that you took the time to be here tonight. Even if you didn't make a comment, it's good to see people coming out for this. As indicated at the beginning of the hearing, you may submit an additional written comments until August 22nd, 2021. Following the close of the public comment period, we will consider all comments received and make a decision on the proposed project. The hearing is now closed, and thank you again.